Hello, everybody. John Haverly again. I'm going to be conducting this persuasive speech on cell phones and the death of communication, also known as the zombie apocalypse. That's right, these things right here. I'm guilty of this. My family's guilty of it. And I'm sure most of you in the audience are guilty of it too. How many times have you been out with your spouse, girlfriend, significant other, and you sit down at a dinner table and notice that everybody's on their phones? See it all the time. Or you may be sitting at the coffee shop or something and notice everybody walking by paying more attention to their cell phones instead of what they're doing or where they're going. Everyone's paying more attention to their phones instead of each other. It's disgusting. That's what we're here to talk about. The death of face-to-face communication. I've done this and I know how it affects the art of communication. I'm going to be using some of my own experiences along with research. We're going to discuss the problems, causes, and some solutions. The problem is that today we've lost our communication with one another. Everywhere you look, cell phones. They're in every part of our lives now. We have phones, iPads, tablets, computers, smartwatches, and such devices. They're supposed to help us stay connected, but they've hindered our ability to effectively communicate and enjoy one another. The first problem is we've lost art of communication. Then we have the long-term effects of the cell phone uses, and then the social and psychological issues. First, we've lost art of face-to-face communication. Second is excessive use can have long-term medical effects on us. Thirdly, how we interact socially. And lastly, there is a psychological effect to their use. Jamie Wood, for example, of Avatal WordPress blog, dated January 8th, 2011, says this: the art of communication allows us to share emotionally. That's right, emotionally. And interact socially, giving communication a wide range of creative uses as an art form. Yes, communication is an art. We also know that communication is the exchange and flow of information and ideas. The only information and ideas we share is via text messages anymore now, or Instagram or Twitter. Or in the military, we say it is information and feedback. You gotta get feedback. Send information downrange, you get feedback as a response. What also goes on to say this about communication in the same article. One factor that sets humans apart from other species is our ability to exchange information fast, efficiently, and over potentially long distances. Yes, long distances. These things can keep us attached. Long distance. Woods also has to say this about technology. The term technology comes from the Greek word techne, meaning the human art or skill. Yeah, technology is an art and a skill. Let's continue to explore even further. Here we're going to dive into the long-term use of these devices. An article published by cancer.gov, that's right, cancer, in January 2019, titled Cell Phones and Cancer Risk. In that article, they warn us on radio frequency radiation. They go on to define that as radio frequency radiation is a form of electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation can be categorized into two types. Yeah, two different types. Ionizing, like X-rays or radon and cosmic rays, and non-ionizing, radio frequency and extremely low frequency or power frequency. Pretty deep stuff. In MedPageToday.com in April 22nd, 2010, Cole Petrochko says this in his article. The announcement of the new study notes that while current research has found no related adverse health effects associated with the use of mobile phones in short term, key word for it there, short term, exposure, data necessary to make conclusions about long term exposure is not available. So there may be some hope yet if we limit. We're killing ourselves socially using these things as frequent as we do. In an article published by Greater Good Science Center at University of California, Berkeley, titled How Smartphones Are Killing Conversations. This was published and done by Jill Suti, December 7, 2015. In that article, she interviewed an MIT sociologist, Ms. Sherry Turkle. Turkle said this about smartphones. 89% of Americans say that during their last social interaction they took out a phone, and 82% said that it deteriorated the conversations they were in. Basically, we're doing something we know is hurting our interactions. And of course, as sociologists, it's her job to study these types of things. Here's what she had to say about conversation. Conversation is the most human and humanizing thing that we do. Imagine that, human and humanizing thing we do. But we do it over phones, not face to face. It's where empathy is born, where intimacy is born because of eye contact, because we can hear the tones of another person's voice, sense their body movement, sense their presence. You can't do that over a phone. It's where we learn about other people, but without meaning to, without having made a plan. We've actually moved away from conversation in a way that her research was showing is hurting us. Why are we doing this to hurt ourselves? The studies are showing this. Why are we still doing this? Why are we intentionally still harming ourselves? Here's what Turkle has to say in that article. Cell phones make us promises that are like gifts from a benevolent genie. That we will never have to be alone, that we'll never be bored, that we can put our attention wherever we want it to be, and that we can multitask, which is perhaps the most seductive of all. So there we go, starting to develop our psychological attachment to these little bitty things right here. Let's not forget, psychologically we are doomed. There are terms and names for this, but in the article there is a FFM, or Big Five personality traits, or five-factor model. For this main point, the NCBI, or National Center for Biotechnology Information, the National Library for Medicine, and the NIH, National Institute for Health, in an article, Cell Phone Addiction, a Review, dated October 24, 2016. Those traits that they're talking about are impulsivity and sensation seeking, self-esteem, self-identity, self-control, and social environment. These traits are alone frightening. They go on to link substance abuse to cell phones, loss of sleep, associated personality, and psychiatric problems with cell phones. Right there, psychological attraction. But let's not forget that dissociative disorder comes along with it from it being attached to your cell phone. Come on, man. These problems, they impact all of us in some form or fashion, man, woman, child alike. It doesn't discriminate. Now that you understand, I'll explain the causes of these problems. There really is no laundry list or root cause of the problems, but they keep us connected to one another, which is a good thing, but it's a problem. We can multitask, which is good, but it's still a problem because we're paying more attention to the phone than we are to each other. We can use them for more than just talking to someone. And you see it all the time. Everybody's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their emails, something. But what's worse is if you have an addictive personality, you will never be able to put it down. Now that you understand the problems and causes, let's talk about the solutions. The simple solution is to put them down. We can put them down and put them away for a few hours at home. Leave them in your car when you go out to dinner or to a social gathering. Or make it a rule. No phones at your dinner table. You won't be without your device except for a short or moderately short periods of time, and you'll not be totally disconnected from anyone. If it rings, you can still pick it up and go outside and talk to somebody if it's that important. We want this outcome because it will cause us to have to get back to the most basic art form of communication. Cause us to have to interact and to get to know our neighbors to our left and right. We'll rediscover one another and increase our knowledge, possibly. Who knows? So, I talked about the death of communication in cell phones. Today, I discussed the problem and the causes and solution of the death of communication. So, in closing, I implore us all to restrict our use of these devices, not just for health or social reasons, but so we can once again be more universal in communication intricacies and become more eloquent in its use and get to know each other once again. I appreciate your time. Thank you.